Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Roach Crossing Weekly General Live Stream, February 17th, 2022, as we are chugging along through this awful winter season. Things on the docket for discussion today. Nothing immediately comes to mind. I'm thinking this will hopefully, as I have said often before, be a shorter stream. I'm not particularly tired, but I have really been getting going in fits and starts with basically getting on a nice standardized routine of doing husbandry, sort of putting away new acquisitions, and taking care of orders. And so with that sort of consistency. Hello, Tristan. Good to see you again. With that sort of consistency of things, heading into the spring, probably season possum or something outside. Hello, Jay. Good to see you and Tristan again. It was what I'm trying to say with this is trying to stay on top of things, keep that momentum rolling. Oh, is it poor baby? I see a poor baby. Hello, poor baby. You want to come and say hi? No, you want to sit out there? Okay. And of course, recently with this guy here, with Mr. Victor, see his butt probably, paying extra attention to his needs, considering he can no longer go out in the backyard solo right now, unrestricted, because he's been finding ways to get out, and I can't do anything about it until the ground thaws and I can fix up all the fencing in some areas. Hey, I'm busy. I gotta do stream. I have to talk to the folks who pay for all of your food, basically. Yeah. So he's not been appreciating the extra time he's had to spend indoors. So we've been going on some extra. I can't say the word because he'll get excited. We've been going on strolls more frequently to fulfill his energy needs. So that's been another factor in things. And maybe one of these days we'll do a nice dumper live stream and talk about these large hairy beasts, perhaps. So, yes, I know. I understand. I know you're the most important thing ever, aren't you? Yeah, you are. Yeah, so you're the most important thing ever. So yeah, that's been going on. Weather's been horrible. It's been absolutely. Hello, Shane. The weather's been absolutely horrible. Not just for me, but also for him, because when he does go outside on the long lead he's compacted the snow on the patio, and so it's basically solid ice when it's not completely melted. And yesterday it was in the 50s, and today it's below freezing. And not only that, we had pretty much everything melt except for some big blocks of ice in random places. And then we had another 6 inches of snow come down within the last 3-4 hours. So when I thought we were done, we got pulled back into this winter chicanery. So that's not fun at all. Yeah, Alan, imagine getting ice. I tried to go out earlier today to collect some. Yes, I know you need attention. Constantly. Tried to. He just gets his big nose and just shows it everywhere. Trying to go out and get some sediment for some projects, some aquatic stuff I wanted to start working with. And even though the water level in the river that I was going to go and grab that for is more than sufficient. Hello, Hylas. Good to see you again. We got some of the regulars hanging out. That's great. Water level's high. Banks are all overflowing. It should be very easy to get the sediment I'm looking for. And it's not, because the ground on the banks is still frozen, and the water apparently is just cool enough that it's not eroding the ice away. So I couldn't even get shovelfuls of the sediment that I wanted. I had to settle for some gravelly sand that got kicked up by a mole or something. So yeah, it kind of sucks with respect to doing the project stuff I wanted to do there, but that's more sort of side project stuff, not really mainline things. So I mean, it's not that important, but I wanted to get it going as soon as possible. Behind me, getting more of the final arrangement with more roaches on that rack as a lot of projects are being moved downstairs. I finally set up all three of the Aeronavega florensis localities that I have in their large proper enclosures. So I'm very excited to finally have that out of the way. For aquatic things, we went on a fish store hopping thing a couple of weeks ago on a Saturday, and it kind of rekindled that sort of enthusiasm from me. And so I've been looking into what just sort of like just aquarium projects I could look at, and I really like loaches. I was into loaches before roaches, and so looking at getting different coolie loaches. And in the last 15 years, more people have figured out how to like spawn them or how to encourage them, and there's a lot better advice on just sort of doing that on a small scale. So I thought, oh well, I'll just do it. I'll just get like 3-4 species of coolie loaches and give it a try. And then there's a fair number of smaller aquatic stuff that I want to keep with respect to invertebrates, some snails and uh, Daphnia and some aquatic isopods and amphipods. And so it ended up being that Will and I took some time and reconfigured part of the basement to make an aquatics rack, and it's coming together. The problem is hacking up. Problem is, of course, getting all the tanks. And if anyone's been trademark loaches before roaches, of course nowadays it's the other way around, but it wasn't always like that. But anyways, if anybody's been keeping track of everybody's been seeing the inflation and everything everywhere, but the price on glass tanks in particular has really skyrocketed, not necessarily within the last year directly, but over the last, 5 years. You used to be able to get the dollar per gallon sale at different pet stores, and they don't do that anymore. And I've seen 10-gallon aquariums going for store pricing $20 in some places, and even on sale they're only like $12.99 or something like that. So for somebody like me who relies pretty heavily on tanks, and in this case actually really needs to get glass aquaria, kind of sucks. But fortunately, there's a pet store that I can swap inventory for different stuff. So that's been helpful. But I of course have to wait for things to come in. And apparently, all the stuff that I ordered won't be in until Monday. So Monday's going to be a big day for getting orders this week to go out ready, and then getting all the supplies that I ordered in. But the rack is such that it will accommodate 15 5.5-gallon tanks and 8 10-gallon tanks, going from largest to smallest from the bottom to the top of the rack. So I have a lot of room to play around with stuff. I don't really plan on keeping any big fish. Hey, you cannot have pickles. You don't even like pickles. We tried this several times. I don't have any intention right now on keeping anything large. Coolie loaches are small. A lot of the stuff I want to keep is small. Shrimp and other inverts are all small. So it should work out, and it'll add a little bit more, even more light to the basement. And then Will and I also were talking about, because I need more room for stuff, or at least I will within, I don't know, maybe 3 months. I'm going to need to add some more racks. And there's already like 4, 8, 5, 12, 13, 18. There's about 20 racks of bugs in the basement, roughly. release racks that are at or nearing capacity, and so I think I need to add a couple more for various things. So we were looking at like how we can squeeze more racks into the basement without doing anything so drastic that we're not going to be able to get around. And with the next incarnation, we are going to be eliminating 2 aisleways, so that kind of sucks. But it doesn't seem like it's affected things too badly because of the layout of the basement already. Hey, what do you want? You don't know what you want? You just want attention? Do you want to be the star of the show? Not right now. No. So look my baby. Look my baby. Yeah, I know. You're a horn dog too. You go off looking for girls. So yeah, fitting some more racks into the basement is gonna become something, and then eventually, hopefully, moving next fallish, or at least getting staged to move with respect to what? You need to go out? You wanna go outside? Look at these eyes. You wanna go outside? You wanna go outside? You gotta go out? Alright, that must mean he has to go out. Hopefully. Come on, let's go outside. So I will be right back. Let's go outside, come on. I'm gonna hook you up too, otherwise you'll go off for a dog. Come here. Nice good boy. You gotta put your collar on. Collar on before you go off. Looking for girls. That's a good boy. Okay, where was I? So basically just sort of getting ready for that stuff. Fortunately, have not had too many new acquisitions that have taken up chunks of my time having to set up. But there are still some things I need to get into. More permanent enclosures like the Elioti spinipes that started maturing, and getting seeing if I want to do a communal with in situ pupation going on with those, and some other odds and ends of stuff, other odds and ends darkling beetles. I'm trying to think what else. Getting some of the whip spider stuff a little bit more fleshed out for accommodating, the ones that I'm gonna try communal, and then the ones that I'll raise singly, and then sort of put into pairing enclosures and whatnot. So and I have to go through the Aaron Vega. It's actually something I need to do tonight. Is actually all the husbandry on stuff in this room, which I really need to do. Full stop. So, but everything does get a daily misting and whatnot in here too. So, but let's looking at some some new additions. This is gross. This is just straight up gross. So Will and I were there's a bathroom in the basement that has been basically totaled since I had my flooding issues back in circa 2016. It's always been an inconvenience to try and fix it because it butts up to a couple of racks butt up to it, and to go through and painted and put sealant and all the other stuff in to basically renovate it. It has to be a specific time of year so I can open up the one window in the basement so I don't gas everything out, etc. So just haven't gotten around to doing it. And, with the move coming up, was like, okay, well, this needs to be done. So went in there and cleaned out a bunch of crap that was in there, and went over to the drain in the shower that's in there. And Will and I have gotten a big kick out of raising the different Psychodidae. I think it's family Psychodidae, might be subfamily Psychodidae. Yeah, Psychodidae. Psychodidae is the family, subfamily. Psychodidae is the nominate subfamily. But so Psychodidae, the drain flies, sink flies, filter flies, sewer gnats, blah blah blah. So every once in a while during the summertime, I will find an adult presumably clog me a filter fly out and about in the house from the drains in the basement. It's pretty common for anybody, especially in Michigan, where most basements are unfinished and whatnot. And in public restrooms and places like that where there can be biofilm accumulations. And so Will and I, we have both been fawning over the Lepisiodina conspicua, the showy moth flies that we found in the stump with all the water accumulating it back about a year and a half ago in September. And so we had those going. I had some weird little moth flies pop up in a fruit fly culture. I don't have any idea how they got in or like how they continued propagating, but those popped up in a fruit fly culture, and then I was able to isolate those in the genus Psychota. I can't remember what the species is, but it's probably the most common species there. So we have two species of moth flies, one very rare with respect to your chance of encountering it. One of them a little bit more common, but the most common species, the Clogmia albipunctata, was one that I had culturing for a bit in the basement. I had I think it might have been a Daphnia tank or something else that I had started, and then I was letting the water evaporate and the level lower to dry it out so that I could save the epiphyia from the Daphnia. And since the season changed from spring to summer and the air humidity went up, the evaporation sort of slowed down substantially. And by the time that I went to check on the tank, when it wasn't, the water level wasn't lowering, there were a good number of the Clogmia larvae in there from just a random adult that had popped out of one of the drains in the basement. And so I had a culture of them going, and then it crashed, either dried out or something. And so, but I wanted to start them again because this is what I do. So in this debunked, I think we've been calling it the crap room. In the crap room, there's a drain, and my old housemate used to have really long hair, and it would constantly get stuck and clog up the drain and just be generally awful. Well, because that room hasn't been used, the sink or the shower has not been used at all in the past 5 years or whatever. And so, the drain was just clogged with all kinds of gross stuff, of biofilm, etc. And when I went in there to clean it out, and I picked out the globule of just ancient carbon that had accumulated in there, I noticed that there were moth fly larvae living in it, presumably Clogmia. So that's what's in this disgusting container right here, which is sitting on my office desk here, right next to where I eat food and do my emails and try to find some semblance of escapism in various videos and video games and the whatnot. It's just hanging out right here because I want to catch the adults as soon as they emerge. They're not particularly long-lived, and so as soon as they start emerging, I'll start grabbing them from there and putting them into the final culture, which will be relative to this cleaner. So pretty excited about that. It's not often you get to find bugs that you can culture in the dead of winter. So there's that. It sounds like Victor wants to come back in, so I'm going to get him. they're very, very independent dogs and cannot make up their mind often. So he hasn't decided if he wants to come in or stay out flopping around in the snow. Yeah, sure. For me, I don't want to come inside. No, okay. All right, come on, come on. Come on inside. Good boy. No, okay. You stay outside. Apparently, he still wants to stay outside. So, but anyway, so that's hello gray ecologist. I don't ecologist. I don't think I've seen you pop up in here before. So if this is your first time, welcome. So I was talking with TJ and Verber dude the other day, and was boasting about having the world's largest collection of drainfly species and culture at 3. So that's something. I don't see anything else general going on. I'm quite excited for the aquatic isopods I'm supposed to receive. I can't remember what the genus was. They're coming from a very remote waterfall somewhere in the middle of nowhere in California. I think we determined them to be one of there's 3 species in the genus, and 2 of them are introduced, or one of them is introduced from New Zealand or something weird like that. One of them is native, but it's a brackish, a saltwater species, and the last one there's not much known about. But that seems to be the one that is being collected, and so excited to give those a go because they're very cool. And I'll probably do a reveal video once I have them set up and hopefully an understanding of their care, because they're very neat little things. So anything else just in my vicinity that's going on? Not particularly. Again, it's not been a slow week. And there's a lot of stuff that went out last week, but I have an expo over the weekend, and I always feel like I overpack, and so I tried not to overpack this time. And in doing that, I ended up taking more stuff than I wanted to bring. And it's just, why do I do this to myself? And so it went very well. It was a great expo, and that sounds like he really wants to come out. So he does not want to come out. He would be very upset at his butt. He's such a little upset that he's communicating with his 2 girlfriends down the street, the half Pomeranian, half Chihuahua mixes that live with my neighbor Karen, and he wants to go over there and play with them, but he cannot right now. So anyways, the expo went pretty well. I'm trying to think if there was anything exceptional or remarkable. I did a trade with Marshall's Arachnids for some Seriocosmus elegans, I believe it was, some slings. I'm not much of a tarantula person per se, but I've started to become quite enamored with the dwarf species just because they have this sort of chunky tarantula look, but not in a gigantic size, and it's not going to take, half my lifespan for them to reach adulthood, like some sort of like Brachypelma or Ephonopelma or something like that. So I've been looking into a lot of dwarfs like Davis, Pentaloris, Cereocosmos elegans. Some of the Ephonopelmas would be cool to just have pairs and sort of just be able to pair them up and get some little bebs available. So yeah, which reminds me, I need to contact somebody about some dwarf tarantulas. Well, I can remember to do so, because thoughts come and go. Hmm. So, jumping spiders are greater than tarantulas. Yeah, I am enamored with the Phidippus are very cute, and I have a lot of them for keeping an inventory. But I just like the size of tarantulas, kind of a size queen with that. I mean, you get away with other stuff with true spiders if they have interesting biology or coloration. Like let's see what the genus is. Sergiolus is a genus of ground spiders, very diverse actually, even in my area, and usually find them in the spring. I've never really noticed them at other times of the year, uh, and I think the species I'm particularly interested in, and they're all quite beautiful species, but the one that actually looks a lot like Cereocosmos is Sergiolus capulatus, and it looks like I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they range into Michigan, and they're very much so a late spring, early summer thing around here. And so, if I want to get a group of them going, I probably have to start looking in places in 2-ish months. So, but they're not tiny spiders, but I think barely 3/4 of an inch leg span, and they're just very beautiful, and they're day active-ish. I've seen them crawling through leaf litter at that time of year. So, I would like to. There are a couple of true spiders I would like to pick up here and there. What project are you the most excited about right now? From one Miss Madison Shine. Project that I'm the most excited for. Hmm. It's very difficult to think about because, like I had said earlier, a lot of the last over the course of December and January was really getting a lot of projects set up and the ball rolling on a lot of different things. And so now we're just sort of in this sort of coasting time period of me doing maintenance and just sort of seeing things progress. The rainbow isopods, the rainbow, and that's the working name for the project. I haven't picked a line name yet. But the Rainbow Porcelio Scaber project, I think, is really going to make some waves when I release it. It's just very difficult to beat the colors that you see on this line in many other isopods, because in a lot of other things, you get a palette, and the species that have this sort of not the same color palette, but color distribution, where you have 3 or 4 colors represented are the ones that tend to be very popular. Things like the Armadillidium klugii, Porcelio haasii, I think it's the high yellows, a lot of the Marulinellas that people keep failing with. That's probably something I'll touch on in a little bit. Is how a lot of people seem to be failing with the Marulinella tricolors and whatnot. But yeah, so I'm very excited for that line for me to be able to confirm that they're breeding to my expectations and to get those up and going. The Pseudoglomerus magnifica are doing really well, so that's kind of a project that has come to fruition that I I'm excited and happy that I got them going, but there's not really an excitement to look forward to in the future aside from having a bunch of them. But the Pseudoglomerus tarsalis that I received, kind of a sleeper hit. They're doing very well for the number that I received and have grown very quickly. And so I really, really like those. They don't have the metallicness of the Magnifica and they're smaller, but they're still very roly-poly, roachy-esque. So for breeding jumpers, yes, I know some people who have done pairings. It's more likely, and this has been the case with a lot of stuff that I get since the ones that I have are wild caught, it's more likely that you get an adult female and she'll have a sac, and then you can raise up some of the babies in captivity. But pairing them, the few times that I tried to pair some, the female may have already been fertilized and she ate the male. But they do need pretty good lighting to be able to see each other and the proper cues so that accidents don't happen. And the thing with Phidippus audax is, in my experience, I have raised them from sacks to slings. But audax actually, at least the ones in Michigan, need a cold diapause when they are very large, immature individuals to get them to mature properly, in my experience. And I had tried a couple of years, collecting some in the fall, and they are just very hardwired for that here. And as well as the slings that I had raised, Regius don't seem to have that going on, but the audax definitely do from around here. So that's something that may catch people off guard if they're trying to raise different jumping spiders. And there's that one species like Violaceans or something that has a pretty much just Midwestern distribution. Let me look it up right now. I think it was maybe not Odiosis. He is banging on the door, so hopefully he will want to come in now. He is just being a little goofball tonight. It's like he cannot settle down. So anyways, yeah, I can't remember which Phidippus species it was that doesn't seem to, or that may need something a little bit more special. I mean, it seems hit or miss with temperate things, because some stuff from around here, you would think everything would be hardwired for diapause, and not everything is. The best example of those Lepisiodinas, where they definitely do not need any sort of diapause. Is it Mystasis? Preparatus, maybe Preparatus. Phidippus preparatus maybe has a very, very northern distribution. Although there's apparently records from Florida, very strange. So, so yeah, but I do like true spiders. There's another neat one that's a carpenter ant mimic that only comes out in the spring here. We get a lot of weird bugs, weird, very specialized looking bugs popping up in the spring here. Thank you, Mantis God, for encouraging people to like. What is up with him? It's almost as if he wants me to follow him to something outside, but it's just all snow and there's a dog down the street that's barking. So I wonder if he's just worked up over that. Anything about collecting in Puerto Rico, or know anyone I should contact? I had a contact from Puerto Rico who hasn't gotten back to me in a while, but he was mostly interested in buying things. And when I had brought up to him, like, hey, you could here's all these spots where you can go and find all this really cool stuff, he seemed very disinterested in actually going out and acquiring any of it. Not for me per se, but actually even just for himself, he seemed quite disinterested. And the moth fly larvae, there's a couple of them crawling around right now. I had to add more water because it was evaporating so much, because there's a cloth lid on it because I didn't want to make it stagnant because they wouldn't be able to breathe. But I can see a couple of them crawling around on the top. It's very weird. They might be getting ready to pupate, probably. So, yeah. So that I just think it's interesting. I mean, it's the same way with a lot of people. You know, I'll contact people who live a state away or asking them to find something and they can't be bothered to go get it. And then I also understand, you know, from my perspective, like I've had people pester me for things a handful of times. Looking at you, Alan, for the Lucanus placidus. But, you know, in that situation, in my area, there's a very small window of time where I can find them everywhere. And then you just can't find them without significant effort. So it's more worth it to just wait a year for them to be everywhere and get in while you can then. But, you know, for other things like isopods or like Armenian vulgare strains, you know, somebody could just go outside and flip a rock outside their house at any time of year and find a dozen of them. It's just like, oh, I can't. No, I don't have the time to do that. How do you have time to like take care of other bugs and give people? I know people's lives are very busy, and you know, and I understand that sort of thing. But you know, honestly, it's more effort for you to want to buy a box or to trade me something else and then have to set everything up and do everything, blah, 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 than it is for you to just go outside, catch some of these that are literally outside your doorstep any time of the year and sell them. So I don't know, people mental blocks with stuff and, you know, perceptions of efforts and whatnot. Was just listening to your stream with Aquarimax. Do you have V Arizonicus pods available? Shoot me an email. I will have some more available soon. I actually just sold the first set that I had available since selling out the last time when I put up the listing. So shoot me an email. We can get that dialogue going. They are pretty slow breeders. You would think something, you know, you think with a smaller, tinier pod that would breed very explosively, but they are definitely not fast breeders by any margin. So I mean, that's just seems to be part of their strategy. They're nothing like Venizilloparvis. So, speaking of Venizillo, Cubaris, and all these things that are probably clade of taxa, a lot of people have not been doing well with their Marulinellas. And I hear mixed things across the board on this stuff. You know, there's people, I'd purchased some from somebody and they sent them and they were small babies and they were tiny babies and they were dead on arrival. So that was unfortunate. Waited to get a replacement batch, forgot to put them in the replacement box, and then said they were shipping the following week. Went to ship the following week, and apparently their colony had crashed and they had none available. So there's that. There have been a couple of people that had supposedly captive bred individuals available with prices and quantities, could not buy them from them. They're like, oh, I don't have them available anymore. Or, there's like 5 other people, or there's a list of people I have to fulfill and I can't ship because it's winter or whatever. And, you know, then I contacted somebody who's very, very intricately connected with the isopod industry as is. And he was telling me very frankly, like, they're just dying on me. I can't get them to live, you know, basically. So I'm thinking that they've been coming back in waves, and people are claiming they have captive bred ones or captive established ones or something like that. And I'm just sort of hoping that one of these days the stars align and I can swap somebody for some that's not going to cost me half a month's mortgage payment. So I'm just sort of waiting for that for tricolors or bicolors or whatnot. You know, some of the things like all the other crazy ones that they've come up with, they're very pretty. They're very pretty isopods, but you know, I just don't want to sink the money or the resources into getting them, and to find out that nobody's breeding them, or you can't breed them, or I'm getting somebody's, you know, year plus adults that are about to kick the bucket. Let's see if he wants to finally come in. Come on in. Oh, come in the house. Come on, you silly. What, do you want to stay outside or do you want to come in? You have to think of the right. Come on in. Here we go. As you can decide your boy. Here's your good boy. Here you go. Is it so difficult? Is it so difficult? Going to make up your mind, little slush puppy. You're a little slush puppy. You're a little slush puppy. That's what you are. You're a slush puppy. Sit. Good boy. Here you go. Finally wanted to come in. So yeah, I don't know what the situation is with the Marulinella. And before I look like an idiot and have egg on my face, I'm gonna look up and see Marulinella tricolor and see if there's any pictures of a well-established colony with multiple different sizes. So, and this for anybody who's listening, this is from in my opinion, this is an excellent litmus test for whether or not something is breedable in captivity when people say they're very easy or yes it is, etc. Is just go to Google Images and so go to Google Images and look up whatever you're interested in and see if there are pictures of established colonies. So to compare things, I will say, if you look at the results for tricolors, you'll see you will see entirely adult individuals, fully grown, fully sized individuals in all the images on Google image search. And then you'll get a bunch of other semi-related things like different, species, other different species, ember bees, blah, blah, blah. So, if you do that, you'll find mostly adults, which to me says there's something that's going on here. People are not getting them established. They're getting imports, and the larger individuals are hardy, but they're not able to keep the babies alive. Here's an image of a bicolor or something with a bunch of monkey around it. First couple instars, okay, but there's no images of a full big size colony. Now, if we look up Cubaris rubber ducky, something that is very reliable species to raise in captivity, and you scroll down through the first page, you find multiple pictures of large colonies of them of all different life stages together in the same place at the same time. You're not hard pressed to find a good mixed life stage colony. What? How may I help you now? You got to go outside. What? I'm sorry. I know what you want to do. You want to go on a stroll, but we can't do that until the live stream's over. We can't. I'm streaming. We're on the stream. Poor baby. Let's see. 44 minutes. I did say I was going to wrap up early today. Hey. You got to be patient. I know patience is a virtuous one that you don't have. So, do you want to go out in the front yard? Is there something out there you want to go see? You want to go to your pee spot? Because you're being very rowdy. Yeah. You want to go to your pee spot? Yeah. You want to go take a quick stroll? Or do you want something else? Come on. Let's find you something else to do. Boy, yeah, something about today has just gotten into him. I guess maybe the weather changing so much. So people on RSpy have posted captive bred babies, but nothing promising. Yeah, so getting adults to drop monkey is not an issue, and this is I don't know if it might have been the last stream that I talked about. I may have brought it up before with those pill millipedes that were all over the place a couple of years ago, and people were saying, "Oh, very easy. Oh, here's pictures," and everybody loves the pictures, and then they show a picture of a parent with first or second instar baby eating a piece of cucumber or something and saying like, see, look, they bred and very easy. But you don't get pictures of a large colony with multiple individuals of different sizes. You don't get that with these things. That there's a husbandry quirk that we haven't figured out for closing the loop, as I was told is a good term, closing the loop in captivity. So just told me by somebody who worked at the Emerald Ash Borer lab in Brighton, Michigan. He was telling about how they were having problems closing the loop in captivity with emerald ash borers because they couldn't get them on an artificial diet. They had to feed them ash trees that were cut and then presented them in the laboratory. They were in some cases cutting the very huge ash tree pieces to feed them, but in a lot of the cases, they were using smaller diameter. And even though they don't select to lay on those in the wild, in captivity, they were less picky for whatever reason. They would actually lay on the smaller diameter ashes. So they're having a difficult time creating an artificial diet for them in captivity. So yeah, it's like Marillanella. Another thing is the price. Marillanella species Vietnam. The price is relatively affordable. It's because people have been having good success with them, so the price has come down. But a lot of the other Marillanellas, the prices are still sky high, which leads me to think, yeah, there was a big import, and everybody's either trying to dump their stock or they're trying to, save some to breed and sell the rest to make a profit, etc. So, unlike again the Cubaris, where you can find images with multiple individuals and whatnot. So, let's see. In purple giants, do I have purple giants? I have purple ghost. I haven't. I think I'm supposed to get some purple giants in a trade in the near future. And some things are just you figure out their little quirk and you'll have good luck with raising them. And I wonder what he's up to today. He's so worked up over something. So anyways, in fact, you know what? And it's just because he's usually not like this. I might actually I'll leave the stream up and running. I'm actually going to take him on just a short walk out in the front yard and see if he wants. There's a spot he really likes to pee on, and I'm wondering if maybe he's just been holding it in for some reason. So okay, we're gonna go. I think I know what's up. I think he's being a little horn dog because he's got his little thingy out. So, as much as it pains me, I'm gonna have to ignore him when he whines because he's being a little horn dog. So it's the chair indoor stream. um, so I apologize to anybody for his whimpering and whatnot. I apologize for him too, but there's nothing I can do about that for him. So he probably wants to. I think there's when this all started about a week and a half ago, there was I think there's a dog in heat on the other side of the block. I think anytime that he gets a whiff of that, his brain, as it does with many male animals, gets very centric on that thing. So yes, so on that note, I'll segue into that. I do intend to breed him, and this is actually why I think I will do a future stream that's just all about gompers to just sort of go more into the nitty gritty of it. But they are a very at risk breed because of the current or the historical political state of Armenia and sort of the current state of dog keeping in that part of the world where there's very much so an emphasis on dog fighting and having large, scary, barrel-chested dogs for fighting and for property defense and stuff like that. And gompers are not actually they're not supposed to be for that. They're livestock dogs. So those aggressive behaviors that are desirable in some of the other Anatolian Caucasus breeds are something that in true gompers has been selected against and discouraged, and then sort of bastardized over time for various reasons. So pending he needs to have his embark, which is a genetic testing that tests for I think it's 176 plus genetic illnesses and diseases that dogs can have, and anybody can do it. You can get an embark kit and mail it in, and it also tell you your dog's breeding ancestry. Comparing it to their archives of however many other different breeds they have. And you can get an idea of your dog's genetic composition and if they're inclined to any sort of conditions that way. And so actually both of his parents, and going back on his mom's side at least, a generation, are very healthy. Gompers in general, being a landrace breed, they have not been selected, primarily for their physical phenotype, as we do with most other modern dog breeds. Things where there's breed standards with conformity to coat color, body structure, the way the teeth are oriented, the shape of the eyes, the pigment on the nose, etc. In gompers, they've been selected basically by the environment and by not being vicious dogs that go after and kill the livestock that they're tending to. So, and they've been doing that for about 14,000 years now. I think 12,000 BC was the first time that there's hard evidence of Gomper-like dogs living in that area, actually in the rock, the cave artwork and whatnot. And actually, if I look it up, I'll post a link to the one image in the chat if I can find it. It's actually I'm very amused that you can look in this old artwork and see a definitive. It's very similar to the dogs that we have, and I'm trying to find the one specific image. If I look up Armenian cave paintings, maybe. There's one. Here we go. I absolutely love this image, and this is from Cars. So it's currently modern day Turkey, historically Armenia. So this is, in terms of heritage, this is an Armenian artwork from I don't know how many thousand years ago, very long time ago. And I'm very amused. I don't know, let's see when this says back to the Bronze Age. I'm very amused by the drawings of the dogs that they have there. So you can see the goats there, and you see the dogs, and you see the curly tail, just like Victor has, and you see the male dogs. They got their little boy parts and everything. And it's just very amused by all of that. So anyways, so where I was going with this is if he tests clear of all the genetic conditions through embark, which he most likely do, since both of his parents do, as well as going back on his grandparents' side on his mother's side. He does, if he passes his livestock training. Gompers do have a prey drive, so he will probably not be good to keep with things like guinea pigs and small rabbits. He does pretty well with the big rabbits. He just tries to play with them. Um, but things, sheep and goats and other large animals, they tend to do well with cats too. Um, so once he passes his livestock work and goes and gets a physical check as well to see if his body type, there is, they, as I was saying before, they don't select for confirmation to a breed standard. So like, oh, sloped back, oh, this, whatever, this and that. But to check his gait to see if he has an energetic, stable gait. They don't want, the body should not rock while they're walking. It's too energetically costly and not very stable. And you get that in a lot of the dogs that have been outcrossed with the big, bulky fighting breeds, where they have a very large chest and very narrow hips. So when the dogs walk, they wobble, etc. It's not very stable, and it's not good for having a livestock animal that is expected to work and also not take up a lot of energy, with respect to not having to feed them a lot to maintain the loss of energy through just getting around more difficultly and whatnot. So they're also very, very slim dogs. I was very surprised seeing the dogs at White Rose Farm. Darren, the breeder who produced Victor, they're very, very narrow dogs. Not because they're skinny, they're very, they're not dorsolateral, very horizontally compressed. Even the shoulders and the hips, and their heads are gigantic. They're huge heads on their bodies. So yeah. So eventually he will, if he passes, everything, he will be used for the breeding program. And then of course I have to find him a bitch, and that's going to be the next thing. And the whole rigmarole of this. The dogs are usually not used for working with livestock until they're about 2 years old. That's when they mentally mature. It's also about when they hit their physical maturity in terms of their full size. But around 6 to 8 months is when male dogs can start having puppies. So we are at that, because he's about he was born in May 26th, so he's coming up on 9 months old in about 9-ish days. So he's a poor little baby. I've considered buying him, if I can find one at Petco or something. They have like those large plushes, so that he could take out a bit of this energy there. The other sad thing is that he unfortunately cannot even do that with my neighbor Karen's dogs, because, hello Dynamo Terror. Don't mind Victor. He's in a certain mood right now, apparently. He can't actually have any sort of boy fun with the neighbor's dogs, because being half Chihuahua, half Pomeranian, they are like basically the size of his head. So he could not even try to mount them if he wanted to. It would be very, very sad, very comedic, unfortunately. So yeah, I getting him a waifu is on the list of things I need to do. So well, anyways, he will be used for breeding eventually if he passes everything, and he needs to be at least 2 years old, and blah blah blah. And then, and only then, will I be looking to getting him a girl. I might get a female Gomper after I move to the next property. I don't think I can accommodate another one right now, especially and definitely not at the moment with the yard not being victor proof as of a couple of weeks ago. So anyway, so that's a little Gomper feel, and I'll go into it more. Hello, Joshua. Good to see you. I'll probably do a special um, live stream on that. Maybe I'll even see if Darren would like to be on it with us, and if I go out to the farm and hang out with the older dogs, and maybe probably bring Victor out. I'm curious to see if he'll remember his parents or if his parents will remember him. He's a little one dog. He's a poor baby. Um, some egg says, have you ever tried making a multi-species enclosure with species from the same locale, like what they call a biotope? Yeah, and if you're sort of getting on that idea, um, is this not the autistic agenda meeting? What is all this about cadence? Hello, Ben. I got a good diversity of people here tonight. Some eggs, if you're sort of springboarding off of the uh, discussion that I had with Russ yesterday on his live stream, yes, I have made some biotopes with things. I mean, the most straightforward one I have is my eastern garter snakes with Armadillidium vulgare. I know that's not it's not a historically classical pairing, but in the modern world, I usually find garter snakes in places where there are large numbers of vulgare and scaber and whatnot, like at the organic garden at U of M. So my eastern garters do have Armadillium vulgare. Uh, and I don't think I brought up yesterday on the Russ on the Aquarimax live stream how I had talked about the Entomobria from Bilis, the CF Uno strigata, and talked, excuse me, about having a small culture of those, or a culture of those propagating. I think I had talked with Russ after the stream had ended because him and I had a little bit of a wrap up discussion. But I had talked with him after it had ended about how I had collected Cotinus mutabilis from there. That's something I could talk about. Let me do a slight derail from the original there. I was very excited because I started seeing some Cotinus mutabilis that had pupated communally in this enclosure that I had made, and I got really excited. And I saw one, and I got I jumped the gun, and I like broke open the pupal cell, and I was very disappointed because I had begun watering the enclosure a bit more, but because of this particular pupa's location, it must have gotten inundated with water, and the fresh adult had actually rotted in the pupal cell. I was very upset about that. But I had looked. I think I broke open another one where I looked through the side again, and there was one moving around. So I figured, okay, there's probably like a minimum of 30, maximum of 100 larvae that pupated in this enclosure. I'm not going to dig around. Surely enough of them will mature that they'll be able to reproduce and then propagate the next generation in this enclosure, and it'll overall be a success. So, anyways, but when I had collected those, I put some soil from this compost pile, really a refuse pile, it wasn't a formal compost pile. I put some of the refuse from this pile in with the Cotinus to feed them while we were driving around other places in Arizona on the rest of the trip. And when I came back, I didn't have the patience or time or what have you to sort through and just pick out the Cotinus. I just wanted to get them into the enclosure as fast as possible. So I just dumped all the cups of substrate into this 10-gallon. And, then I was feeding the Cotinus larvae dog food, and then they all went burrowed into pupate in the deeper layers. And so I was just, I had a heat light on this enclosure and was just sort of keeping an eye on it and watering it occasionally. And then when I checked into it again, realized that I had this biotope of stuff straight from Bilis, this little Bilis in there with some sort of small. I don't think it was a tenebrion. It very well could be, though. I need to send some to TJ, to an invertebrate dude, to look at. There's a very tiny orangish tenebrion, possible tenebrion, a larger one, and he identified them. I can't remember the genus to save my life right now. There's a larger one that was about the size of a lesser mealworm beetle that was apparently propagating there, because I don't remember there being nearly that number of adults being added into that enclosure originally. There were the white ant springtails, the related species that are just going crazy in there. And there were web spinners too. And I don't think there were any of the entomopryes in there. I think the actual refuse pile that I grabbed the substrate out of it was too moist for the entomopry to be there. But I could be wrong. I have to check into again. And there were some rove beetles and stuff like that as well that were clearly breeding in there. So I do have a biotope going from a rest stop in Vilas, Arizona, with all these really cool small creatures in it. And I would really like to get them all isolated and work on propagating them on their own. And I did that with the web spinners because I had already intended to do that. I just actually set up the new web spinner enclosure today to propagate them separately because they're really cool. I'll make them available on the website. It's just a really cool entire order of insects that people don't really know about. And they're social. They're just like, I guess, borderline below eusocial in some capacities. But they're just a really cool, and the silk that they make is really cool too. It looks more like spider silk than a lot of other insect silk does. So, and their silk organs are actually on their front pair of legs, and they just sort of like comb it out onto stuff. It's very, very cool. So I do have a biotope like that going on from Vilas. It's just really, really cool. And it could work for people who want to do arid bioactive enclosures, I guess, because I mean it's from the middle of the desert in Arizona. Is just a very humid microclimate in the refuse pile with all the rotting mesquite pods and what have you that were mixed in. I do have an Eleodes from there too. I think it's Eleodes longipes. I think I got like 3 adults, and I didn't really bother setting them up because I wasn't sure how they would do, and if I really wanted to keep a culture of them going. Spinapeas. Now I'm very much so fixing to try other different types of larger Eleodes in the hopes that they don't require diapauses at different parts of their life. Some eggs love the green June beetles. Yeah, Metabolus is I think it's the largest one in North America of the Cotinus species. So I'm very excited to hopefully get those going. And they seem very easy. It's just the preparation and having a pupation layer so you don't have to bother with taking the larvae out and stuff like that. And, if I can get to like an F3 or F4 in this enclosure, that would be really awesome to not have to, decompile it and accommodate the larvae pupating and whatnot, and just have it all happen in situ over and over. It would be really awesome, make them very appealing to a lot of people. Joshua says, I heard you mention using cocoa fiber topped with mulch for red runners in yesterday's live streams. That's something you do, / something that would work well for a lot of non-climbers. Yeah, that's sort of my go-to with very easy species of roaches, or things I perceive to be very easy, so I don't have to do the full get-up of sphagnum moss and the coconut croutons and whatnot. And Shelfordella are very easy, so that's what I use for them, the dubias, and for Blabbers fusca, the things that I have some more sizable colonies of that don't necessarily need a really consistent moist cleanup crew, because the roaches are just gonna enumerate and push other things out. And I do have large alpha tobias colony with the dubias, but for the things that I know aren't going to need that extra little layer of care in terms of energy put into making a nice diverse substrate mix, I will just do coconut fiber and then mulch on top of it. Biotope terrariums are awesome. This is unrelated, but I think I found and captured a Glauterix gemma in my pantry. It's in a temporary enclosure until I get a proper ID. If you're in the southeastern United States, it very well could be. That's awesome if you found it in there. I think they're very, very, very rarely recorded popping up in people's houses. But I mean, if you live somewhere and something else lives there, you'll eventually get in your house. Case in point being people who get bears in their house, people who get bats in their house, people who get all kinds of other animals that somehow wander in. Cypress mulch some eggs. I lean very heavily on cypress mulch when I cannot get free mixed hardwood mulch from around here. I lean very heavily on cypress mulch, and I have used it since 2006 with excellent results. I've had bad results with fir, so I usually tell people not to use that. And really aged cedar, I'm sure if you had aged fir, it would be fine. And really very aged cedar, I've had some decent success with. It's just you gotta wait until all the highly aromatic chemicals are out of it. It's broken down a bit, so it's not just being a bomb of insecticide basically in the enclosure. Uh, my garters currently are. I captured the female while I was doing the job when I was working for creating sustainable landscapes on a millionaire's property, very beautiful property, who did not really care for snakes much. So the female is wild caught and she was gravid, and the male that I have is her son. So I have the two of them. Just the female is wild caught. And it's been about this will be I think her fourth year in captivity in 2019 to 2022. So she's been in captivity for 3 years and she's doing very well. The patterns are actually for Easterns. The reason why I brought her back because almost all snakes nowadays I just catch and release if I see them. But the reason why I decided on her was because one, I didn't really want them there, and two, just patternless. Actually, she has no stripe. Her whole body's basically a nice, very what color? It's like a minty green color. Let me see if that's a good way to describe it. Mint green. Yeah, she's minty green with a couple of dark flecks. She's a very beautiful snake, and showing pictures of her to a couple of Garter people, they've sort of like their eyes sort of start shining and their hands start ringing, and they're just like, "Will you sell her to me? Will you sell that? Will you sell the male to me? Can I have the male?" And I'm just sort of like, I just pull back just a little bit because I would love to see somebody who can make that more available to people who are keeping garter snakes. But I want to make sure that they would get results out of that because I think the trade is co-dominant, so it would be very easy. But if somebody loses the snakes, either they pass or they are neglectful or they decide to give them away or sell them to somebody else who's going to fail, then I don't want to be a part of that. I would rather get them reproducing and make them available and then get them out to several people so there's a greater chance of somebody having good results. She's a very pretty snake. The thing with garters is, it's another thing, it's a secret passion of mine. Oh, my back. Is I really like them. People, they always have the reputation of being very pissy snakes. When I got into them, they were basically the first snakes I was able to go out and catch and enjoy and really get to know, really develop a very intimate relationship with Eastern garter snakes. And people complaining the garters are pissy and whatnot, and all the garter snake people like, no, they're wonderful, they're like the best snakes, and they are a step above most other snakes. They just blow ball pythons out of the water with their. I'm not a person who wants to anthropomorphize them, be like, oh, look at me, it loves me, or anything like that. But there's more going on in their little brains than there is in the cumulative brain power of 50 ball pythons. They're just there's a spark in there that just isn't in a lot of other snakes. So I really like garter snakes, and so where I was going with this is, being a big advocate for garter snakes. Oh, they're not pissy. Oh, they're not mean. Oh, they're really nice snakes, etc. And somehow, after having had many very nice garter snakes, including some that were basically that were lap dogs, where I could sit and put the garter snake on the arm of the chair that I was sitting on, and the snake would just sit there and have no inclination to move. And then if you put a piece of worm or fish by its mouth, it would just sort of like curl its lip up and grab it and swallow it, and then just keep sitting there, just like it's completely unfazed by whatever's going on around. It's just very calm snake. So anyways, after being an advocate for them, and then all of a sudden, the last garter snakes that I end up having, long term, are two of the most psychotic snakes I have ever worked with. The they're just I can't even look at her most of the time without her flipping out and just going frantic in the enclosure. And they're in a nice well. They're in a yeah, the audio is scratchy. YouTube was saying something earlier about the connection uh, going in and out or something like that. And maybe you're hearing Victor, who has been whining every maybe 10 seconds ish. Sounds a little like a loose cable. I'm on wireless, so it's probably it could be due to the snowstorm that is going on right now. So, um, anyways, yeah, with the garters, I end up with, and her son is just as bad. I mean, he has his moments, but he's just as much of a psycho as his mother. And it's not like some garters they have a very very lively food response. They'll come up to the front of the enclosure and they'll anticipate that you're going to be giving them food, so they'll just come up there and they'll watch anything that moves. And then if you open the enclosure, they'll try to eat your hand or they'll strike at whatever goes in there, and then they'll just sort of like, if it's not something edible, they'll just sort of pull back and be like, oh, and then the brain wires will reset and they'll start trying to eat things again, or they'll stop trying to do that and they'll just sort of investigate it with their tongue. But these snakes, they go from just like being food interested, and then all of a sudden they're terrified, and then all of a sudden they're not going to flee backwards, they're going to lunge out of the tank and flop onto the ground, and then musk, and then turn and bite. And it's just like, this is the garter snake that I told people this is the type of snake that I told people garters were not. And now, of course, the ones that I end up with for so long are these psychotic snakes. So, and yeah, garters are they're social snakes. They are, I wouldn't even say subsocial or pseudo social. They're social snakes. They will sunbathe with each other in the wild. I can't even think of the number of times out of the breeding season, during the summertime, where I would find multiple females or multiple males or males and females curled up together. I have a picture back around 2008 or 2009, actually, of a garter snake and a decay snake curled up together. Not sitting under the same board apart, not just touching each other, but completely curled up together. So apparently they will even, they'll recognize other snakes as being something not dangerous and something that they want to get closer to. Garter snake curled up with other snakes. I'm gonna see, and of course they have their big breeding events in some populations and some subspecies. But outside of the breeding events and breeding season, I have found them curled up together, and you'll find the same two snakes together in the same spot often. A couple of weeks apart. So they seem to form, maybe I'm not going to call it friendships, but they seem to form some sort of bond with other snakes, and it could be as simple as, this is a safe place because this other snake is here. This other thing that is me is here. So this is a place I'm going to keep coming back to. Or maybe, hey, if I curl up with this other thing that's very similar to me, we'll both be able to keep an eye out for stuff. It's just an idea of that being a safe place for them to both be. One of my favorite nature preserves I go to once had a garter snake basking next to two copperheads. Yeah, they'll do that. I wouldn't be surprised if in parts of their range you could see them basking with skinks or with fence lizards or things like that in the spring. So yeah, they're wonderful snakes, and very beautiful snakes too. I'm a big fan of earthy color tones, but you can't find a better natural palette in snakes than in garter snakes. You need blue, true blue, every shade of true blue, green, pink. You can even get purple in some of the Puget Sound and Western species. Bright orange and like the dorsal stripe on anectons and on the black necks and stuff like that. And even in the same population, so much diversity in Michigan alone, in the spot where I usually go to. I mean, I can brown, yellow, bright red, bright orange in between the scales, green. I've caught a couple of snakes that were garters that were definitively green. I think my female would qualify as pretty definitively green. I don't know what other color you call it. Let me see. It's again it's more green than olive. It's like it's a minty green, shifting more towards like the cerulean-y side. So I wonder if I have any pictures. I probably have a picture I could upload to something and then put into the group because I was sending some pictures to somebody a couple of days ago. So I might have some pictures somewhere here. See if I can find it. Doesn't help that whenever I send myself pictures, I don't actually label the conversation as garter snake images or what have you. Got to be something that I sent myself. Garters. Here we go. That's easy. Let's see if I find an easy way to share it. Download it again. So I didn't really put it anywhere to have it on hand. The file's already in the destination. I wonder if is there an easy way I can upload it to here. Emojis, poll. Let's see if there's just a quick some image sharing thing that I can. Okay, that Imgur. I guess I'll have to go on Imgur and use that really quickly. Images. Choose photos. I have to find them on my desktop of mother and son. Upload will commence. I hope this doesn't drag the stream quality down. Wow, snake prices have gone up. Yeah, that's another. Everything's going up, but 2019, I think it was, there was a renewed interest in Europe. This is what I was told, over colubrids, all the North American colubrids. They finally realized that California king snakes and corn snakes and all the like are really cool looking snakes. And so apparently a bunch of the people who were just mass producing them in the United States started exporting, and that caused a huge trickle down because people were already sort of overbreeding them for years, and people were starting to get tired and sell off their projects and wholesale babies off and just a bunch of random stuff like that. And then all of a sudden all these extra snakes vanished from the United States markets, and now all of a sudden everybody who had these snakes that you could buy a bunch of for $30 each at your local expo, nobody could find them anymore. And so now prices have just gone through the roof. They're just now, I think, starting to come back down. But my Asclepian rats were about $200 each. But they would have been a rare rat snake. But even California king snakes, it's very easy to see them. There's very easy to see them for about $100 each at the local expo, which is unheard of. People were giving them away for $40, back around 2017, 2018. So here, I think this is the Imgur link. This is the picture of my two garter snakes, which are in a bioactive in my living room. The plants, there's a Tredscantia or whatever the current genus is for in the one pot. There is a dryness tolerant peperomia, which you can barely see in one of the other pictures. And then on the other side of the enclosure, which you can't see at all in the pictures that I posted, there is an old-fashioned spider plant cultivar that doesn't have variegation, that dies back a little when I don't water as much, and then rebounds and gets big and beautiful and lush, etc. And yeah, reptiles has skyrocketed. It's not just due to COVID; it's also due. It is a lot of stuff is due to COVID, but to importers no longer getting their hands on all that delicious wild caught stuff for dirt cheap. So there's not people who are trying all these weirdo lizards and stuff being brought in from all over the world. There's now a very finite pool of stuff that people can choose from. It also allows people to have the dialogue about if you buy this, it's not just going to die in a couple weeks, and here's exactly how you keep it. Here's exactly how you breed it. So those are my two garter snakes, Eastern garter snakes. And that her color doesn't really show very well there, but it looks a little bit more tan there. It's definitively green in person. But yeah, she's psychotic, and her son is very psychotic, and I'm hoping that maybe they'll make some inbred babies, and if not, I'll probably I'm gonna go out this spring and capture a horny male and throw him in there and see what happens. And again, the her son is patternless and he has nice orangish red on his sides. But I would really like to see some people working with whatever this gene is. I'm sure some garter snake people have kept it before. Scott Felser and whatnot. I know has worked with just all kinds of garter snakes over the years. And I remember on the garter snake forum on thamnophis.com, people fawning over just random garter snakes people would find in their yard. And that's how we got like the flames and the melanin. Oh, I would really love to keep a melanistic. I found one in the wild a long time ago, and it slipped out of my grasp. There was a compost pile with a bunch of thistles in it, and I just remember very vividly seeing the tail just slip down into the thistles, and it was dried out Canada thistle, and there's no way I was getting my bare hands into there, so I wasn't able to catch that snake. But the population's still there, and genes might still be there. So, but yeah, so those are my two Easterns, and they're bioactive 15-gallon with Armadillidium vulgare. And it's a very easy snake to take care of. They're both on rodents. I also give them worms from the yard as a treat, and sometimes fish too. You have any advice for a coastal North Florida collecting trip? I'll be in Cape San Blas for a few days in a few months. Just look under everything. Look under bark. Look in the leaf litter. Take your time sorting through stuff. And actually, I was going to say, with you being in coastal Alabama, yeah, you probably found a Glautrix in your cupboard. Feel free to send me an email with a picture, etc., to confirm. If it's an adult female, it may have been fertilized, and then you could start a colony. Or I would be interested in acquiring some Alabama Glautrix because all the different populations seem to have some slight color variation. So it'd be nice to have another one to work with. Other than the next one I'm fixing for is for the ones from around Lake Placid, but we may have to wait for Archbold Biological Station to reopen to be able to get those again. So yeah. Anything else coming up, happening, etc.? Not really that I can think of. I have been getting more, and this happens during the winter time because I'm stuck inside and I usually get on top of my projects and blah blah blah. And then I start thinking of other stuff. I have been thinking about getting a little bit more back into reptiles, but I don't think I'm going to go as crazy as I did before. I mean, I've always had some reptiles. I've had reptiles the last couple of years, and my beardies, my egg-eating snakes, and day geckos, etc. But I would think I'd like to start getting back into some colubrids, specifically with some locality colubrids and some species that people don't usually work with. I have somebody who's currently working on legally collecting some Slowinski's corn snakes, and I think that's something I could see myself committing some space and time to, as well as some speckled king snakes, among other things. So, how big is the biggest Armadillium vulgare you've seen? In recent times, the biggest ones I've seen were male magic potions, which can get just almost, let me see before I feel like it's almost an inch long. The old, ancient male, true magic potions. Oh yeah, definitely an inch. Definitely, maybe even a little over an inch. So that's the largest I've seen that I can definitively point to and be like, oh yeah, this is huge. When I was a kid, I remember finding a just gigantic one in my sandbox, and this is how you know it was, special and memorable, was the fact that I'd seen tons of roly-polies in my life up at that point, and just saw this one that was just gigantic, and I can't even remember. It probably was. I don't even think I'm exaggerating that it was probably over an inch long, but it was huge enough for me to remember it to this day that there was this giant roly-poly, and that goes also to say I've seen some big Aniscus ocellus too. I took a ruler to one once because nobody believed me how big they were getting up at the organic garden at U of M, and it was also over an inch long. And I have the picture somewhere on my hard drive of this gigantic Aniscus ocellus. And yeah, they do get bigger. Isopods will get bigger if you keep them less crowded, they will put more energy into growing instead of reproducing. And instead of reproducing and producing, 10 babies every couple of weeks and then, die at a small size, they will put more energy into getting gigantic and pumping out a couple of really huge broods, and then they will die. It's just how it is with isopods. So if you want to get large broods of something, you don't mind waiting with respect to isopods, just keep them in very spacious enclosures. But if you really are trying to force generations in a project, keep them very crowded and in kind of subpar conditions. You'll get them to reproduce more quickly and sooner. Do they have a final molt like insects, or just keep molting? I think they just keep molting, but I think there's probably some limiting factor in their physiology, because there have been a couple of times where I've seen some very large, well-aged isopod individuals. Coming to mind would be Porcellio ornatus south, which I used to think was Semmelparis, and now I raised a female in isolation, and she produced about 3 broods. So I must redact that as a rule for ornatus. Although generally in a colony setting, when it's not just one single adult, you do tend to see one reproductive event from the older individuals. But I've seen some Armadillidium vulgare and some Cubaris rubber duckies that just seem to have gotten gigantic and seem to attempt another molt, and they get trapped in the molt for whatever reason. And that just seems to happen. And it happens I've seen it happen twice with roaches, with Bersatria, I believe it was Cabrerae, and either Rothi or Fumigata, where an adult female would try to molt, and she would get stuck in the molt because they can't shed past the wings that they've created, because when they molt, the wings do not have a mechanism to produce another layer of exoskeleton. So, and I thought it would just die, but it looked so strange, and the back, the back abdomen part that it had tried to molt was falling off. And so I picked it up, and I was like, oh, it's like, did it try to molt? And it teased the pronotum a little bit, and the old exoskeleton came off, up to where the Brachypterus wings are. And so, it just seems like there's something that their physiology has not adapted to accommodate additional molts, at least in some insects, majority of insects, and apparently also in isopods, where there's some sort of hard limitation on either most individuals, or once they hit a certain point, something changes about their physiology where they can no longer continue molting after that. So it'd be interesting to try that out and see what you could do. I mean, they do stuff with insects where they will use juvenile hormone to get them to stay as larvae or nymphs or whatever, and they just keep molting and growing and growing. But I don't actually remember seeing any results on what happens when those individuals that have been forced to remain immature, what happens when they mature, when a larva tries to become a pupa and it's twice the size of a normal larva, or when, a nymph tries to do its ultimate molt and, it's twice the size of a normal nymph. So I'm not sure what exactly happens. I imagine it's probably that the prolonged exposure to the juvenile hormone either sterilizes them or messes with something that prevents them from, finally reaching the adulthood, like their internal genitalia are deformed, or something else about their physiology is deformed, and, they may molt and not live very long, or something like that. So, we're getting on an hour and a half, but Victor has calmed down. I think seems to have gotten whatever was in his system out, so that's good. I hope there's not a mess I have to clean up. But any other questions? We have had quite a few different questions this week, and I rather do like responding to specific inquiries of different things. So. A lot of inquiries for for a Pseudoglomerus magnifica. Very, very many. Have you ever seen alpha male behavior from small Porcellio? Porcellio scaber lava seem to exhibit some very basal behaviors like that. And, they're very pure Porcellio scaber lava they're very different creature from the Porcellio that are introduced in all over the United States. They're very different organism behaviorally and physiologically, even though they're the same species and they produce fertile crosses and blah blah blah. So, have you ever seen? Yes, I have seen some roaches and some isopods with that Sigma male grind set. Yes, I have seen that before. um, have I though? Yeah, I mean, you see like all kinds of sneaker males, and it's actually a problem. Sometimes when I pull pairs of isopods that are when they're smaller, or actually when they're a bit on the larger side, and put them into a spacious enclosure where it's just a pair in a very large enclosure, I would say maybe about 20% of the time, maybe as high as 30%, I will not get any progeny out of that pair because the female is either grown too big too fast for the male to really make successful advances on, or vice versa. So yeah, the Sigma male grind set is real, guys. You gotta be afraid of that. So, I think any other interesting behaviors I've seen in isopods. I've seen Porcellio ornatus. It's the north, but also the derivatives of whatever that entity are, like the high yellows and the witch's brews. They love it surprisingly dry, and I'm always like, I will see them in the driest parts of some of the enclosures that I keep them in, and I'll just think like, I'll panic because like, it's an isopod. I need to get it back to the moist end, but then I'm also like, but it picked being there on its own. It could go anywhere in this enclosure, and they're picking these spots, so they must like it in this context. So yeah, I have like Porcellio ornatus in with my Eurycotus and Prospero. It's a very excellent pair because the ornatus. I do see a lot of them in drier sections of the enclosure, but it seems like maybe gravid females and the smaller individuals are in the moister areas, and then the Eurycotus are usually just generally distributed throughout the dry areas, so they don't tend to get in each other's hair much at all. So I really love that combination, and I may bring that to the forefront, keeping Porcellio with Eurycotus, or Porcellio ornatus with Eurycotus. And a male scaber and a harem breeding setup act hostile when disturbed. That's very interesting. In the wild, I don't think I've ever seen anything like that, but it's a different story flipping a piece of bark or plywood or something in the wild, and seeing the group response to being disturbed versus them being very comfortable when you flip a small piece of wood, or whatever hide they have in captivity, and they aren't quite running for their lives. So yeah, I'm looking forward to things finally thawing out and being able to get out and look for some new mutants and stuff like that. But oh my god, the snow! I thought we were done with it, and now it's back. Hey, it's the Russian bot, or whatever it is. There we go. Now we know it's a successful stream when the bots start showing up, so that's pretty cool. So, but yeah, I'm trying to think anything else. This stream ended up going for a full hour and 40 minutes. I can't believe that. I was very much so, fixing to be done in about an hour, but here we are. Gotta remember to sleep sometime. So next week will be Will and I's first full work week in quite a while, because he's been taking time off and I've been getting time off and blah blah blah. So we'll have a nice full work week to get the bug room nice and polished up. I'll be able to work on my new aquarium rack some more. You're telling me I can vum today? showed me his tail spikes about the Porcelio male alpha. Yeah, you know, my Expansis and all the other Spanish ones, I've never really had them do antagonistic behavior to me. And usually I find groups of males underneath stuff, but you know, it's usually all males that are about the same size, so maybe they're kind of bullying each other around, and the ones that can take it just sort of stick it out. But the smaller ones get pushed out, you know, the sneaker males. So, um, but yeah, I'm going to. I said before I was going to look into maybe getting some new gear, like a better webcam and a formal microphone and all that stuff. And I was going to look into a way that I could do a tour of the bug room. Hi, Kim. Good to see you. Nice to see you pop up. Always good to see some familiar names, etc. So I wanted to look in that, but I am probably going to end up. It's looking like I'm going to be dumping some serious money on some new bugs over the weekend. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that in the near future. Unfortunately, people just have to be happy with the new bugs that I will inevitably be able to offer. So, but I do want to do the tour, perhaps see if I can stream off of my phone while I'm in the basement. It'd be nice to get things sort of polished up before then. So that's probably what Will and I will be working on next week after finishing putting away new stuff and whatnot, since we've been quite caught up on husbandry. I don't think the aquarium rack will be in its final state. I think that's impossible. I still have tanks to buy, tanks to cycle. I still have to decide what's going where. I have to buy a couple more light fixtures. So, and I got to figure out if I'm going to mirror this new arrangement on the other side of the basement to finally close it off to just having a single aisleway to be able to access about a third of the collection. It's not as bad as it sounds, but it's still pretty bad. So, but so be it. If that's what has to happen, so be it. So you know that may happen next week or the following week. I will be in the near future be taking a couple of days off for some personal things. And then coming up in March, the end of March, third weekend, I think it is, I'm going to visit Alan, do some talking about commercial entomology at Auburn University, and go out and finally 2022, some good collecting, go out and look for some parka bladder with Alan, maybe look for some plants, maybe look for some fishes, etc. And then of course get on that Bugma male grind set through the remainder of March, April, and May to get ready for yet another Florida collecting trip in the dead end of May / early June. So that's sort of the next few month layout of stuff. So support baby. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining. I'm going to go see if he's calmed down a bit from his horndogness. Maybe he just wants some loves. So take care. I'll see everybody next week. Hopefully have a good stream next week with a lot of updates on miscellaneous stuff. And until then, may your cultures ever be bountiful. Goodbye, everybody.